Welcome everybody to the Ask Me Anything session with Bob Garner. And many of you will know Bob, but if you don't, I'll give you a little bio. So Bob is the owner of Casal Dei Fichi, which is it's a group of sustainable holiday apartments in Les Marques. Les Marques, Bob, right?
Correct.
He's a passionate advocate for the environment. That's probably where most of you will have seen him latterly, working to basically perform, to inform and persuade and lobby all of the parts of the short-term rental industry, with the idea of trying to get them all to think about how they play a role in tackling the climate emergency. His latest campaign, which has been kicked off in the last few months, is called Green VR Events. And it centers on inviting all the event and conference organizers out there, particularly in the short-term rental sector, to try and take action to be more eco-friendly. Obviously, the conferences have the opportunity to reach a lot wider into the community, and also to set the agenda and create change for the better. Bob, welcome.
Great, good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, I love this subject, really interesting subject, but I'm always reminded that no matter how, and you probably hear this, you probably think this as well, no matter how sort of passionate we are, you or I are about it, ultimately it comes down to what's in it for me, for the operators of accommodation. So what do you think is in it for those people? What do you think the benefits are of trying to adopt a more sustainable practice?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, some people come at this because they believe that there's a climate emergency and they personally want to do something about it. Other people are obviously understandably thinking about the bottom line and what's in it for them. I don't mind which way people come at it because there's a good argument for both sides. So I'm just happy that people come to this space. But in terms of coming at it from the financial point of view and the bottom line point of view, I think it's worth remembering that 8% of global greenhouse gases relate to tourism, all of tourism. It's a huge industry, and the short-term rental sector is a part of that. So that we know that we've got a challenge that we can all pick up on and do something to reduce our carbon emissions. But what's important, I think, is that the survey data, particularly coming out from Booking.com each year, is really showing now there's an appetite and there's a demand from the consumer for a greener way of traveling and a greener way to stay. And so what I would say to hosts and to property managers is that if you're not preparing your organization to be greener, to be more sustainable, then there's a market there that you cannot tap into because those people are looking for those greener stays. And I know from my own experience, often people come to us because we run sustainable holiday apartments. Obviously, they like what we do. They like some of the things that we put on that are not connected to the environment. Well, but often what first brings them to us is the environmental aspect. So I would be saying to the vacation rental manager listening to this is, well, don't you want to tap into that market, that growing market that's only ever going to get bigger? It's never going to go down. It's only going to get bigger as more people, particularly younger people, are switching on to the climate emergency and thinking they can do something about it. So I would say tap into that market by taking some simple environmental steps and talking about that and branding your organization in an environmental way. Now, I don't mean greenwashing. Obviously, you need to take some fundamental steps and make an effort, but then you should be communicating that, and then you should be finding ways to tap into that market. So, for instance, badging your website accordingly, or tapping into a green OTA. There's lots of sites out there that you can connect with and bring that audience to you. And we also know even things like, for anybody who's using something like Booking.com have now introduced eco branding onto their listings. So if you want to search for an eco friendly place to stay on Booking.com, you can look for that criteria and find those places to stay. So if you're not branded eco, you're not going to come up in that search, and you're not going to be one of the people that might be successful in getting that business. So I think it's a really positive thing to do for the environment, and it's great for your business too.
Yeah, there was quite a few things there that you mentioned that I thought were interesting, but I hadn't really clocked myself. It seems so simple when you said it, but it's what's in it for me as an accommodation operator very much depends on the guest. And the guest, as you've rightly pointed out, is increasingly looking for reasons to book with you and reasons to stay with you. And indeed, in the same way that an accommodation provider struggles with what to do to try and be more sustainable, the traveler thinks often, what can I do to travel in a more sustainable way? And they are therefore looking for those flags, those things. And I think it's interesting to think about it from that guest traveler perspective, and to think, what's in it for you is entirely because guests are looking for, that extra kind of reason to book with you. And the other one was the booking report that you mentioned. So I've quoted this a few times. I can't remember the exact number, but I know that Booking in 2021 ran the Sustainable Travel Survey, and there were over 20,000 respondents to that survey. So it was a huge sample set. And you'll probably tell me, but it was at least 70%, more than 70% of those respondents said they would be more likely to book with somebody who had a sustainable practice of some sort.
Yeah, I think it's 78%, I think the last survey, and there's another one due to come out very soon. And the other thing is, of course, no, you're never going to lose by being green, by being sustainable. Nobody's going to be switched off and say, oh, I'm not going to stay with Bob because he's not running sustainable holiday apartments. That's never going to happen. So if you're up against, you've got your business and there's another business, and it's the same price, the same quality, the same wonderful experience, and one of you has got some green aspects to you, then that might be the bit that pushes the guest over the edge and says, I'm going to stay with that property because they're making an effort, and I can align my values and my thinking about what I'm trying to do in my personal life with what this host is doing. So I'm going to support that host because they're doing the right thing, they're going down the right path, and I want to stay with a company like that. So I think there's nothing to lose by doing it. And these things don't have to cost you any money. So it's not like you're having to lay out a lot of money to do that. It's just finding that there's a market that you haven't yet tapped into and thinking, what can I do to tap into that market, and branding yourself accordingly.
Okay, excellent. So, I mean, you've started to talk there a little bit about what people can do. So have you got a few simple things that they could adopt or do to make a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote a couple of years ago a 10-stage roadmap for hosts as to what they can do, and perhaps there'll be an opportunity to link that into the notes in some way. But just giving a few headlines, some really simple things. I always say to people, start with the low-hanging fruit. Start with the easy things that you can do without a great deal of effort and with no cost, and then you can get some quick wins. So the first thing I would say, I always say this first because it's so easy, is, are you on a renewable energy tariff? Is your business on a renewable energy tariff? So, as you know, electricity is normally fueled by carbon, by coal, for example, and you can now go to your provider and say, I'd like to be on a renewable energy tariff. And what that means is your money is then going into supporting renewable energy, and obviously that's much better for the environment. It shouldn't cost you any more money. It's a quick call or a quick email to your supplier and say, I want to switch to that tariff. If by any small chance they don't have a tariff, switch to another provider. It isn't difficult, but it makes a huge difference because your money, your purchasing power is going in then to support renewable energy. And that's really important. And it's the first thing that you can do. It's a quick phone call. Try and get rid of some plastic out of your business, single-use plastic particularly. Think about the products that you use and think about how you can remove some of those single-use plastics. So for instance, we've taken on board using our cleaning products and our personal products within the property, and we use a company called Splosh. There are many other companies, and they send you these dried products that you then rehydrate. So they're being transported to you at a much lower weight because most products are just 95% water, and then you just rehydrate that product, and you continue to use the same plastic dispenser, and so you don't throw it away. So plastic isn't great, but if you're going to use plastic, just keep on using it. Don't buy a product once and then throw it in the bin, because that is really, really bad for the environment. Obviously, things like LED lights, for example. We know that the new LED lights that have been around for a few years now are much better in terms of they last much, much longer, and they consume a tiny fraction of the energy of previous lights, because most of the energy is going into creating lumens, creating light. It's not being wasted by heating up a bulb that's actually wasting energy. So LED lights are the way to go. And if you haven't put LED lights in, put them in. They will last for years and years, and they will save you a lot of money, and they'll also consume a fraction of the electricity. The other thing, again, I mean, I'm talking for easy things here. Look, if your website is green hosted, there's a company you can go to, the Green Web Foundation. You just punch in your URL, and it will instantly tell you whether your host is green energy supported. So obviously it takes energy to support all these servers that we all use for our websites. Obviously, if they're running on green energy, then that's great. And you can get a badge from the company. You can put it on your website. It's a simple thing. You just put it on 2 seconds and you're on. I know you have it on yours, Andy. We have it on ours. Lots of people are doing it now. It's another way of demonstrating. It's a small thing, but it's a way of demonstrating that you've thought about these things and you're thinking about how you can take a few simple steps. So I could go on and on. There are lots of things you can do, but I always encourage people, just start with some simple things first. And I always say it's a little bit like a drug. You get addicted to it. You put some little things in place. You get some positive feedback because you get some more bookings, you get some repeat bookings, you get some lovely reviews, you might get an award, you might get an article in the press. All of these things are positive reinforcers. You get them and you go, oh yeah, this is really good. I'm going to do more of that. And that's how we did it 15 years ago. We just started doing things. We decided it works. It was great for our business. It was great for the bottom line. And it was good for us because we want to do things for the planet. And it just works. And so guests appreciate it, the planet appreciates it, and it's great for the bottom line. So it's a win-win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. And very often with these big issues, the human nature is, well, I can't make a difference because it's too big. It's too big for me. And so I think you're right to try and refocus that energy and that desire to do it, but not being able to do it, into the little things that you can do. At what point, this suddenly came to me as you were talking, at what point am I able to have the green credential within booking.com applied so that someone who ticks the green filter finds me? Does any of this stuff that you've mentioned achieve that?
Some of it does, yeah. They've got a detailed criteria that you have to go through about how you use your waste, how you use your water, how you heat. There's a whole, I don't know, maybe a 20-point list of things that you have to self-certify that you are doing that. It varies because it's not a standard process across the world, because they have adapted it to different regions and different countries, because some places have more difficulty in achieving these things than others. I don't know the details. I certainly know that we did it and it's badged on booking for us. And obviously it's the first stage. They've been talking about this for a couple of years, and they implemented it last year, I think, late last year. It's the first stage. They're going to ramp it up. They're going to increase its visibility and increase the robustness of the scheme. But obviously this is going to take time. It's a big organization, but it's there, and most people, if they take some simple steps, can get onto that badging system. And I would really encourage people to do it, because you really have nothing to lose. And of course, also go to, there are lots of other accreditation schemes. We use one called Green Tourism. We have the gold mark with them. And again, that's an accreditation scheme where they ask you a lot of questions, and then they give you a gold, silver, or bronze badge, and you can put that on your website. And even the bronze one is a great recognition that you've made some steps to make your business greener. And guests see that. I encourage people to put it on their website, put it in their touch day guide, put it in all the information, let people see it, badge it on your email signature if you want to. Just find a way of getting it out to people so they can see that you're making an effort and that you're trying to be greener.
And I think it's interesting that Booking have decided to start simple and to start with a small step, very much what we were saying earlier about how as an operator you start with the simple things and you let it evolve. And obviously they've started with that because they've seen that demand, that 78% of travelers would prefer to stay at a sustainable business. And so that demand that they're seeing through their platform, the minute that you activate that button that they can tick and you appear in the search results, well, you know, it just seems very, very sensible to me. You know, pretty straightforward. Okay, now talking about people that have done great things. I know you've done obviously great things in your own business, but have you got some examples of what others have implemented within their business that's having a positive effect from a sustainability point of view?
Yeah. So, for instance, somebody like Nikki Matai, who you know, and I do too. She has a company called Villa in the Vineyard here in Italy, not so far from me actually, and she's got a great environmentally sustainable business there that she's been running for a few years now, and they've put in some of the bigger kit that's helped them really push their environmental standards. So obviously they've got lots of solar panels, they've got a heat pump, they've got a copper filtered swimming pool, so you don't have to use chlorine. And they've got some of the bigger infrastructure, as well as some of the smaller things as well. And I know that works really well for them. And they fill up really quickly. They get a lot of people who are interested in staying in environmentally friendly places. And I know they book up at the beginning of the season. So it works for them because the investment that they've put in is coming back in spades, because they don't have to use OTAs, and they get most of their bookings direct, I believe, because people are interested in what they're doing and are passionate and believe in it. So that's one. Another one would be somebody like Helena Sideris from Park City Lodging in Utah. They've got a great initiative. Again, this is also part of the wider thing about giving back. They do some green things as well, but they add, I think it's $1 a day onto each booking. They've been doing that for a number of years now. And then that money goes into local conservation initiatives in the Utah area. And they've raised something like, I think it's something like $200,000 just from adding $1 a day to their bookings. And obviously they're a bigger operation than I am, but that's still a huge number. And if you think about that, most people aren't too worried about $1 a day on their holiday. It's almost insignificant. But you know, multiply up by the number of guests, multiply up by the number of weeks, and a few years down the road, and they've made a huge difference in terms of giving back to the community and investing in environmentally sustainable projects that are helping the community. So it's giving back to the local community and helping local tourism as well. So I think that's a wonderful example.
I really like that, because that takes this very sort of global issue and puts it really, really local. So, you know, you talk about things that you can do. Well, you don't necessarily have to do those things yourself, but you just facilitate a way in which you take, in this case, $1 a night off the booking, and you donate that money to an organization locally that has the wherewithal to deploy something that helps the local community. And I think that's really interesting. Sometimes I'm guilty of this as well. You tend to sit here and you think, what can I do? What do I need to do? What, you know, and sometimes it's simply about facilitating, like, can I facilitate? And in this case, passing on the money to a local organization. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we do something about giving offsetting carbon for our guests and for our business, and then we plant trees with it. But we don't physically plant the trees ourselves. We give it to an organization called Ecology, and they do the legwork. They do the work because they're the experts and they know what they're doing. So yes, you know, do these things and then partner with organizations who can help you deliver what you want to deliver. It doesn't all have to be on your shoulders, as you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, we at Touch Day, we do that. We offset our own team emissions via a monthly contribution to Ecology, who then go and plant trees and actually do other projects as well. Yeah. But we also, on our website, when we take payment for the subscription to our service, 1% of that goes to Stripe's climate fund. Stripe is the payment processor we use. And so those are two examples where we know, like, what is Touch Day going to do? We can't really influence anything, but if we can contribute to bigger projects that need funding, that then can contribute, to the bigger issue, then we've played our part. So yeah, I like that approach of thinking about how to leverage the vast numbers of guest nights that come through. Great. Okay. Was there any other example you want to mention before we move on?
Well, there are so many. Yeah,
so many.
Long list, but, yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Grand. Thank you, Bob. Now, you've sort of set the scene, what's in it for me, and some of the things that we could do, and some of the things that other people have done. But having done all this stuff, how do you think it's best that to communicate to guests in a way that has a positive outcome? Like, what are the sort of things that you could do?
Yeah. Okay. I think the thing to do is, you've heard of green washing, where people are pretending to do things they're not really doing. The opposite of that is something called green hushing, which is you do stuff, but you don't talk about it, which I think is totally and utterly crazy. So the really important thing is that when you start to do this, you need to talk about it. You need to be out and proud and bold and shouting it from the rooftops, because it's something to be proud about. So, put it on your website, have an environmental page or a green page or something on your website, so that people can see, if they come to your website, that you're doing some things, and list them there, what you're doing, and perhaps also list some of the things that you're going to do in the future, where your ambition is, because we're all on a journey and you can't all do everything straight away. But you can say, I can do 5 things this year, and next year I'm going to do another 5. The other thing I think is really crucial, and obviously this comes back to Touch Day, which I use too, is that the guide itself is really critical. And I know you've done a lot within the business to make that easier for people to talk about what they're doing environmentally and what they're doing locally. And that's really crucial. So use that guide. We use it to talk to your guests, to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, and be very open about that. And then also talk to them about what they can do to help you while they're staying with you. So again, there's a bit on our guide which says, and this is how you can help us, Mr. Guest or Miss Guest, and list the things that they can do, so that they can play their part. Because people are really interested in that. Even if sustainability isn't top of mind, once they know that it's happening, they go, oh yeah, that's really cool. That's really good. I really appreciate that you're making an effort and trying to do stuff. How can I play my part? So explain to the guests why you're doing it, what you're doing it, and the role they can play while they're staying with you. And most people, I find, will be really pleased, really chuffed to engage in that and play their part. And they go home thinking that they've made a bit of a difference, because they've chosen an environmental place to stay. And while they were staying with you, they also participated in some of those actions that helped keep that sustainability alive. So talk about it, explain it, and put it in your guide, and be very upfront about that. And I think those 2 things will make a big difference to guests understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it and why it's important.
Yeah, the green hushing phrase is interesting to me, because I guess there are a lot of people out there that sort of say, well, I don't need to crow about this stuff. This is nothing to crow about. This is sort of my responsibility, and they kind of put it, further down. But it is important to communicate what you're doing, because, as you've said, guests really appreciate it. And actually, when you phrase it like you did, when you talked about guests then sort of wanting an easy way to participate and do something and go back home feeling really quite good about themselves, that they haven't just kind of taken a journey and emitted tons of emissions and not really thought about how they can play their part in trying to offset some of that in different ways. And I think that's really interesting to think about it from that perspective.
Yep. And, I mean, really, the number of times I've lost count now, and it's always wonderful when it happens. A guest goes home, they message us afterwards and say they've had a great stay, and they say, oh, by the way, we've just implemented, that Splash product, or we've got rid of single-use plastic, or we've just created an organic garden, or just we've put solar panels in, or a car charge, or whatever. Thanks for inspiring us. And that's absolutely brilliant, because they've had a good time and they've gone home and they've learned something, and you've played a small part in that education process. And that's, isn't that a wonderful thing to have achieved? It always gives me a buzz when that happens. And often they'll then write about it in a review. And of course, they will then tell their friends, they'll tell their family. And that's another way of getting more business, because they'll come back and they'll recommend it to other people too. So I don't think you can lose if you do it in a genuine way.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that's a really, really great example of just those little sort of ripples that go on when someone sees you doing something relatively simple and the light bulb goes off in, we're talking about lights, you know, where they go, oh, yeah, I could do that too, and take that back home. And I think that's what that's all about. I mean, you know it, having been you know, working in this space for a number of years now, and the task of influencing and moving people is little and often, isn't it? It's not kind of one gigantic movement. So brilliant, Bob. Thank you. Been a really interesting discussion. I think there was some great practical examples there, as well as some very compelling statistics and reasons to do something. So thank you for your time, and we should talk about the green events next time, and talk about how you're sort of influencing big conferences to make a you know, a more of a green stance. But for everything else so far you covered today, thank you.
Okay, and thank you for all that you do at Touch Day. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course, inspired by you. See you, Bob.
Ciao.